Let's take a closer look now at some of the outcomes from the G20 summit with Lester Munson. He's the principal of BCR Government Affairs, and we want to thank you for being here. Well, as John points out, all the markets seem to embrace this news from Asia, Europe, the U.S. Very exuberant about this. Should they be?
Well, I think so. It is good news that this trade war is not going to be ratcheted up even further and there's not going to be more sanctions. I think that's a good thing. I don't think it means that there's a solution anytime in the near future, however, and it looks like, I think there's going to be actual stasis between the U.S. and China right now.
Somebody said today that it's just basically a truce, but all this drag on both economies and the global economy remain, that these tariffs just kind of, that there's no like stimulus here. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's true. And there's, it's been a while until Trump came along. The U.S. hadn't really used tariffs extensively as a means of addressing trade issues. Now that it's happening, people are having to calibrate what's doable, what's not doable. It appears that we've reached an equilibrium where there can be some impact on the negotiations without too much of a deleterious effect on the U.S. economy. So politically, it's sustainable for President Trump. He's going to have to think about how he's going to play this next year if there's still no final deal with Beijing.
This administration's done a lot of this about Huawei. Huawei bad. And you've got 15 European countries with these pilot programs with Huawei. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're going to do business with Huawei. And a lot of people are saying these are mixed messages that are going around. Talk to me about Huawei and how they fit into all of this, and how can they have these two messages going with Huawei? Yeah, we'll do some business with them, but yeah, you shouldn't.
Well, it is a problem, and I think the president's reversal on Huawei hurt him. It's going to hurt him on the Hill. He's been hearing from Republicans and Democrats, both Marco Rubio, a Republican, and Chuck Schumer, a Democrat, have criticized him for that decision. It's a real problem in the national security community. Concerns over Huawei have been building up for a very long time, for years, since about 2012, maybe even earlier. So this is not something that he can just trade away during a trade negotiation. There's going to be real consequences for him in Washington. And I suspect what's coming next is maybe a move back towards more restrictions on Huawei. I think he's been a little bit hurt by the reaction.
Let me ask you about the G20 in general. I was at the G20 in Hangzhou a couple of years ago. I just want to get your thoughts on these confabs, bringing all these world leaders together, the importance of them, and deals being struck at them. How important are they?
Well, I think they are important, and it's good for world leaders to be talking, even when there are big disagreements. And there are right now big disagreements between the U.S. and China. It's good that they go places and talk and at least go through the motions of addressing these concerns. It's becoming harder and harder to come up with a kind of a final statement at the end that everyone can agree to, and those final communiques are becoming lighter and lighter. It's maybe the last one we see for a while. But I do think it's important that countries come together and talk. Diplomacy is always better than the alternative.
Trump tends to suck the oxygen out of every room. So we were talking a lot about Trump and Xi and their meeting. What are some of the other takeaways from this G20, do you think?
Well, clearly, Trump decided to kind of grab all the thunder and go up to the DMZ between South Korea and North Korea, have his impromptu meeting with Kim Jong-un right there on the border. No one knew about that. Maybe no one in the U.S. government knew about it. It was kind of it was terrific showmanship. It's totally unclear to me whether it's going to lead to any kind of actual deal between the world and North Korea, but it certainly made for interesting television.
Shinzo Abe hosting this, got elections coming around. Does this help him?
I think it does help him, although President Trump probably didn't do him any favors when, before the G20 even started, he was being very critical of the U.S.-Japan relationship, which frankly confused everyone. Not really sure why he was doing that. But I think overall, Prime Minister Abe has done a good job of managing this and of kind of getting everyone at least in the same room and agreeing to some of the same words.
Some of the meetings that took place on the sidelines were important. People talked about them, Putin and Trump, and of course Xi and Trump. But some of the meetings that didn't take place also got news. And of course that would be Abe and Moon not sitting down. Right. What's your takeaway on that?
Well, I think it was perceived as maybe better for Moon because later, Trump went to South Korea and of course to North Korea, so that may have helped him. I wouldn't read too much into that. We know that the Korean-Japanese relationship is fraught. It probably always will be. I think we could just hope that at the next meeting there is more of a bilateral conversation.
Quickly, if you can, when we look back on this G20 a year from now, what will people remember about it, do you think?
Maybe not much.
That's sort of the story every G20, isn't it?
Some good headlines, but no real substance.
All right, Lester, great to see you. Thanks so
for having
much.
me.